All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hokyoji's Sunday morning Dharma talk. It's good to see everybody here. This morning, we have the pleasure of hearing from Shodo Spring again. She was gracious enough to give us a Dharma talk a couple weeks ago, and she's back for more. So that's great. Shodo has practiced with Dainin Katagiri Roshi, Tenshin Reb Anderson, and received ordination and Dharma transmission from Shohaku Okumura. She's trained at Hokyoji, Tassajara, and Sanshinji. And Shodo's new book, Open Reality, Meeting the Polycrisis Together with All Beings, will be published in the fall. So welcome, Shodo, and we're happy to hear from you. You're muted, though.
Good morning. It's nice to be here again. I like being welcome and talking here. There's a thing. Pre-orders are available, and so now people are expecting me to talk from the book. Maybe I did that last time. I don't even remember. I don't like talking from the book. I like talking to the people in front of me and working with things that are being difficult for me right now. So that's where I'm going this morning. And I have a few text things to work with. I thought my title could be Zazen for These Times. And the reason for that is I have been having a hard time getting involved in local activism, trying not to get too involved. And I was in a meeting on Friday, and one of the other Buddhists in that group said, "How much are you sitting every day?" And I said, "Not enough," because they didn't want to tell him. And he said, "You should be sitting 2 hours a day." And somebody gasped, and he said, "No, not for you, for people in Shodo's position." And just the day before, I had done a practice discussion with somebody who was asking this question: what do you do with the times we're in? And first I confessed that I was having trouble too. And then I went looking into material from the talk, the class I had held the previous night. And it helped me as much as it helped him. But Sogera said 2 hours. And I went, well, I can do that. I waste that much time. I was sitting 1 hour, but then I was falling down. So yesterday morning, I got up and sat 2 hours. I think it was from 6 to 8. I'm not sure. And I put on my full robes and I did the service. And yesterday was a better day. Just pretty simple. So now I have some words from Dogen about the practice of Zazen. So in Soto Zen, there's this idea that Zazen is good for nothing. That's a Sawaki Roshi quote. Okumura Roshi was really vehement about that. And once in the days when I was still hoping to get enlightened, I asked him about it. And he said, well, if you're sitting Zazen to get enlightened, you're still doing business. That's a pretty hard hit. Okay. So you're still doing business. You're offering an activity and expecting a reward. It's like buying and selling. So that is not it. On the other hand, to say that there are no effects of sitting is kind of to betray the Dharma, and it's a common Soto Zen problem. And I will just briefly mention the Samdi Nimochana, an old text. It's a precursor to I lost the word. The mind-only school. And in there it says, well, if there are no fruits, it's not happening. There are fruits, there are results. I often refer to them as side effects, but we like them. When I started sitting, well, let me see. I had read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance years earlier. I had showed up at Minnesota Zen Center for one of those afternoon workshops, and they had us sit for 15 minutes, and I kind of liked it. And so I started kind of sitting at home. I think I went to one Zazen instruction, and I think that was by Tim Burkett. And I've heard later that what happened for me is common. So for a whole year, I was sitting at home, I don't know, 20 or 30 minutes a day, and my back was hurting less. Now, there's no reason to have your back hurt when you're 35. But anyway, my back felt better, and that encouraged me to do it. And I started going to talks. I remember going to a Wednesday night talk because there were no services involved. They had a little schedule, and it says, Zazen talk, Dharma talk. And all the mornings there was Zazen service. There were always these chanting and bowing things that I wanted nothing to do with. So I went, and we had Zazen at 7. And at 7:30, we had a Dharma talk preceded by the Heart Sutra and 3 bows, as in 3 prostrations. And I was in the middle of the room. And so I just, to be inconspicuous, I went down on the floor. And was like, I don't remember much about the talk. I thought it was interesting, but, I didn't know anything. So I'm not going to talk about bowing. I will mention that the very next time I had the occasion to do a bow, I got what it was about. And that has stayed with me. I've given talks about it. It's like, oh my gosh, frustrations. But somewhere in this early period, I didn't know why people sat together. I knew that it made my body more comfortable. Not my knees, but the rest of my body, my back. And, I moved out of town, and somehow I managed to get back into town every single Saturday morning to go to lecture, which was a clue. Katagiri Roshi was doing the lectures. I had no idea what he was saying. I would listen to an hour talk and try to figure out one sentence. But after a while, finally I sat a one-day sesshin, and that's a thing too. I started asking people, why do you do this? And they would say, the first 2 days are the worst. So I never went to a weekend sesshin. It's like, why? But finally I went to a one-day sesshin, and then I went to Rohatsu, figuring I didn't want to just do the hard part. Now, I know it's different from that. I know that the first third is hard, and then it gets better in the middle, and then the last part is pretty pleasant, and you don't want to stop. Somewhere during that whole beginning time, I started to find things in the chants Like there'd be one sentence or one phrase that suddenly made sense. I remember liking, your treasure store will open of itself and you will use it at will. I really remember the sound that issues from the striking of emptiness is an endless and wondrous voice that resounds before and after the fall of the hammer. It's like, oh. So they've retranslated them, and they're sort of like more comprehensible but less poetic. And so I remember the old ones. I like the old meal chant better than the current meal chant. And here's this thing about the side effects of zazen. So bendoa. And this is one of the ones. So I just gave a couple of lines from it. We would chant Jiji Uzumai as one of the lunch chants during Sesshin. Once I had done that 7-day Sesshin, I went to every Sesshin that I possibly could, which was almost every month. People around me noticed that things had improved, including my children. They said, she doesn't get so angry anymore. So I'm totally in favor of these benefits. And I don't know, a year or so ago, when was it? Not too long ago, I was looking at climate change. I was looking at Gaza. I was looking at various things being messed up, but it was before the second Trump inauguration. And I was going, what I think of what's happening in the world is really awful. Why don't I feel worse? So, here we go. And this is an early translation, and it was just the one that showed up when I was looking around for a copy. When one displays the Buddha Mudra with one's whole body and mind, sitting upright in the samadhi, even for a short time, everything in the entire Dharma world becomes Buddha Mudra, and all space in the universe completely becomes enlightenment. So they're Buddha Mudra. So we have, can't do it. We have the mudra, the cosmic mudra, which is part of our sitting posture. And then the whole posture that is described to us, sit cross-legged in full lotus, sit upright, keep your eyes this way, and put your tongue here, and all these things, which are basically, they're a yoga for calming the mind. And so this whole thing, this whole posture is the Buddha Mudra, meaning it's the shape of enlightenment. So with one's whole body and mind. So the shape of the mind, introduction to Zazen can go so many different ways. And I've heard it many ways, and I've taught it many ways. And in the background of all of them, there's this thing called shikantaza, which is just sitting wholeheartedly in the middle of the universe. And in my early days, we were taught that shikantaza was enlightenment and that it was basically unattainable. Or that was the impression I had. I would have to go back and find out what they really said, because I had a lot of impressions that were maybe a little confused. Then I ran into a Japanese teacher, who said, "Are you practicing shikantaza?" And I said something like, "I aspire to practice shikantaza." But then I learned that when you get between Rinzai and Sodo, shikantaza is the thing Sodo does, and Rinzai does this insight thing. And so shikantaze is supposed to be a combination of calming and insight. And so here Dogen says, everything in the entire Dharma world becomes Buddha mudra. And all space in the universe completely becomes enlightenment. That's even for a short time. So you sit down on the cushion, you adjust your posture as well as you can. And then your mind starts yapping at you. There may be people for whom I've met people for whom this doesn't happen. But the thing, even for a short time is a very important phrase to me. I heard that Suzuki Roshi once told his students, if you can get like 1 minute of calmness in a period of 40 minutes, that's great. And Reb Anderson said he was thinking, I can do that. And Suzuki said, I expect more of you. And my own teacher, Okumura Roshi, who his words, I think it's what he was told by Uchiyama Roshi. But it's like, well, sitting is good and you can sit. But if you want to lead people, you have to sit a lot. And he himself, when he was ordained, the way he said it sounded like there was a voice, but something said to him, sit 10 years. So he sat 10 years. And every 10 years, he would kind of check in. And he was ordained on Buddha's Enlightenment Day. So he always knew when it was. And he would get up, sit another 10 years. And when was it? 5 or 10 years ago, he did that check-in, and it didn't say sit another 10 years. And he started preparing to retire. Now his knees are wrecked. He can sit down, but not for a long time. He uses a chair. He still sits. But it's really interesting because the power that is his life has come partly from nothing but zazen. He would often say that he doesn't know anything but zazen. And then he delivers these incredible talks because he's a very fine scholar. And he's sort of, somehow he claims that he's not enlightened. I wouldn't know. And I don't know what's happening with the light here. I'm not doing it. It's just, okay. It's clouds, I guess. Anyway, so you sit. And he introduced me to 50-minute sitting periods. And he introduced me to 5-day sesshin that lasted 14 hours a day. I used to sit and count how many hours I was sitting cross-legged. But I don't remember what it was. But we had 10 or 11 periods in the original sesshin at Minnesota Zen Center. Anyway, what I discovered was that those sesshin with no Dharma talk, no chanting, no services, no dokusan, my mind got more still and my body hurt less than in any of the other variations. It's like he also did a Genzue, which included 3.5 hours of lecture. And a lot of times when you could talk to each other because maybe you wanted to discuss the teaching. And obviously shorter sitting. And, during a lecture, it's a little more okay to move. My knees would hurt. I was fascinated, but but just sitting still was there's some way that my body said yes. And so in that first long sesshin, the 7-day Rohatsu sesshin, I was fortunate. I only had knee pain a couple of times. And I had a pleasant experience. And people say sometimes it's like it's a marketing plan or something. They do say, I know I've heard it said that you take one step towards Zazen and Zazen takes 100 steps towards you. Something like that. But the thing where first your body feels better and then your mind starts to calm down, that's a really standard pattern. And if you don't just stop there, if you keep going, then the troubles begin. You start noticing things about yourself. And it's too late to get off, usually. I see a number of people here who never got off. So when you do this, everything in the entire Dharma world becomes Buddha Mudra. All space without exception becomes enlightenment. Therefore, it enables Buddha Tathagatas to increase the Dharma joy of their own original grounds and renew the adornment of the way of awakening. So I found something, maybe it was yesterday, it was on Facebook. I have a friend who is Lakota and doing a lot of work with it. So she posts a lot of stuff about Lakota tradition. And this was a quotation by Albert Whiteley, who I don't know when he died. He's in the path. But he was discussing the word prayer. And he said when the Christians came, they were really focused with prayer and they were concerned, not pleased. They were worried, I think, that the Lakota people were not praying. And what the people said to them was that, first they asked for a definition of prayer, and it was something like asking for help. And they said, we do that. And so this word, wache kie, has become translated as prayer for, decades. I don't know when this started, but probably 150 years. But that's a mistake. And what Albert Whiteley says is our prayers are to all creations on earth and in the universe. Or another phrase is to acknowledge your relatives. And we've probably all heard that term, all my relatives. That everything around us. And a lot of the stuff in my book is like that. And as far as I can tell, it came from Buddhist teaching and from my life. And I'm embarrassed that I didn't look harder because I knew indigenous people knew this stuff. But here's this word, and they've known it for ages, except, of course, if they've been co-opted. But people are still holding that way. Everything in the Dharma world is Buddha Mudra. All living beings of the Dharma world in the 10 directions and 6 realms become clear and pure in body and mind realize great emancipation, and their own original face appears. Everything, not just humans. Sometimes there's difference of opinion about who counts as sentient beings. He translated living beings here. So that would include people, animals, plants, bugs, fungi, worms, fish, whatever. I actually don't think that's the whole limit. I think that the creek and the river and the sky and the stars and, the rocks and so forth, I think they're all that too. All things together awaken to supreme enlightenment and utilize Buddha body. Immediately go beyond the culmination of awakening and sit upright under the kingly Bodhi tree. So let's see. I still have time. There is a path through which the incomparable awareness of all things returns to the person in Zazen, and whereby that person and the enlightenment of all things intimately and imperceptibly assist each other. Therefore, this Zazen person, without fail, drops off body and mind, cuts away previous tainted views and thoughts, awakens genuine Buddha Dharma, universally helps the Buddha work in each place, as numerous as atoms where Buddha Tathagatas teach and practice, and widely influences practitioners who are going beyond Buddha, vigorously exalting the Dharma which goes beyond Buddha. At this time, because earth, grasses, trees, fences, walls, tiles, and pebbles, all things in the 10-direction Dharma realm carry out Buddha work. Therefore, everyone receives the benefit of wind and water caused by this functioning. All are imperceptibly helped by the wondrous and incomprehensible influence of Buddha to actualize the enlightenment at hand. And it's like he keeps saying the same thing over and over again. But every time I read it, it's like something leaps up. And something says, yes, this is the way the world is. It was Dogen who said, it's not that we have Buddha nature, it's that we are Buddha nature. The entire universe is like dancing in front of us. It's revealing itself to us. Elsewhere, Dogen talks about the Dharma turning somersaults. There is nothing else. And sitting Zazen is like, it's a step. It invites us into that world. Okay, so there's a joke. There were these two monks, and they were discussing Zazen and whether you should only sit Zazen in the Zendo where you should sit it in the rest of your life. And how many people know this joke? Okay, all right. So they could not come to agreement. And so they went, okay, we'll ask the abbot. And so one of them goes to the abbot and says, is it correct when I sit Zazen to also be doing things like eating and cleaning and, daily life? And the abbot says, absolutely not. You should. When you sit Zazen, you should only sit Zazen and do nothing else. So he comes back and tells the other monk, and the other monk says, see, you have for this. The other monk goes to the abbot and says, is it appropriate when we're going about our daily life to be sitting zazen or to be practicing zazen? And the abbot says, absolutely. You should do zazen at every moment of every day. You should never stop doing zazen. And so there we have it. And I think there's something, I want to make a connection between all these things, zazen permeating all time and performing guidance. Oh, I went to the next thing that I didn't read yet. Subtle Buddha influence. If we allow ourselves to live in that space, regardless of what we're doing, the Buddha influence is happening. And if we take time out from ordinary activities to calm down and let ourselves notice that the nature of the universe is enlightenment, that everything around us is just shouting for joy. That makes it easier to carry it into the world. We're at a time when we need to carry it into the world. And when was it? Oh, actually, I was annoyed with somebody on email just before I came and sat zazen, and I was like, oh, this is an example of the kind of mind that's the reason I need to sit more. These days, mostly I can manage to refrain from saying like really stupid and offensive things. And starting fights. But usually. So here we are in this time. I'm generally a person who complains about the state of the world. I complain about Gaza, I complain about climate change, I complain about too much traffic and the price of everything. And, I have lots of complaints, especially about the way my country is operating right now. And I'm sometimes terrified. I'm like, okay, how long before they pick me up and put me in jail? As a citizen, they probably won't deport me, but you never know. And I was actually thinking, oh, what if I take a leadership role in the protest on Saturday where everybody's supposed to go to their state house? And I can't remember what the tagline is, but we're trusting all this stuff that's happening. And I went, oh, well, what if I give a talk? Who will be watching? We know that ICE is in the area. They've been seen. Our local police are not helping them, but I don't think they're interfering with them. Anyway, so thoughts like that come up. And I have been known to say great things about how you can practice anywhere. And I just said a bunch of great things about the whole world as enlightenment. And I've been told that this is even true if it's not pleasant. I have preferences. Let's see. And now I don't know where to go, having chosen. I don't like to plan ahead too much. I have this here from Okumura Roshi. I was looking for a quote. I thought it would be a Dogen quote, and I stumbled across this thing. I don't know when he said it, but it's like it's the nature of the universe. Our lives are patterns of the fabric produced by the loom of time and space. When we see the individual things, each one is impermanent, constantly changing, without any fixed independent entity. But this work of weaving continues. Our life is a result and a gift from people and things from the past. It's a nice way to describe the workings of karma. And interdependence. Because it's not just our own actions, but it's like everybody. And everybody in the moment. And then he says, what we do now influences later generations, whether positively or negatively. The loom is weaving the ancient brocade of eternity, while the spring is new, fresh, and different each year. All individual things are working together as a whole without anything being excluded. There is no observer and observation from outside. And I followed this by writing a bit about foundations, reflecting on this house that I happen to live in, which used to be a barn built in 1935. And that I was in this house in a storm that was so fierce that the rain came through the windows. I mean, it came through the edges of the windows. And the house didn't shake. I thought, wow. And then I wrote, oh, that was in 2019. Oh, no, it was an earlier storm. Anyway, might it be possible to live in a mind that won't shake or crumble in a storm? And then I wrote about Zazen. And I said, years of such practice creates a foundation that rests quietly without disturbance, that can endure tornadoes, that can thus become a shelter. And I'm engaged in that right now. I need to re-up my Zazen practice so that I can be a shelter, rather than needing a shelter. And then I wrote about community and spiritual community. And then I mentioned asking for help, that prayer thing that the probably Jesuits had a certain idea about, that the Lakota had a completely different idea about. It goes counter to our society, which has gotten more this way in the course of my life, and even in the past 20 or 30 years, that we should be independent and we should do it all by ourselves, or that we should imagine we're doing it by ourselves. And it's said that wealthy people think they do it by themselves, and now and then one of them breaks ranks and points out how they were supported by all beings. Lost my train of thought. See, every time I venture out of great Dharma and make political remarks, it's like, boom, everything goes away. So it's my job to be a refuge and a shelter. I accepted that when I took up, well, first when I received, I won't say when I received lay precepts. I would say when I received ordination, set my foot on the path. It took a few years, and then I noticed that my life had turned around and it was going in the direction that I thought it had gone before. I had thought I was doing something, and I couldn't see where I was missing until I was actually doing it. And transmission was another. It's like, oh, I am now employed. Not paid, but I'm employed. So I think that's enough words for me because others might have something to say. It could be about refuge in these times, questions or answers. I know something good is out there.
All right. Does anyone have any comments or questions or?
Well, there's a thing. So I've been an activist before I was a Buddhist on some level or other. And there was a time when I was in priest training at Sanshinji in Bloomington, and I was engaged with some environmental activists, and I was surrounded by people not in the Sangha, they just wanted to sit. I was their official activist, apparently. But people were doing things about prison, and people were doing things about a highway, and people, so outside of the Sangha, I was involved with people who were doing all this other stuff. And I took a permaculture training for 2 weeks. And really climate change was what I was thinking about. And it had come to my attention while I was there. Or I had realized that it was real. It had only been this vague thing before. And I went, oh no, this is not a joke and we are in trouble. When I took the permaculture training, I learned all kinds of things to do to take care of the earth, and specifically to influence climate. I learned how to create microclimates. And then I continued to watch, and it's like, wow, there is so much. We do not need new information, and we do not need new machines. What we need is a change in attitude away from being the lords of the universe, away from being gods, and away from thinking we have to control everything. We have to recognize that, like Albert Einstein said, is the world a friendly place? That's the most important question. And so I'm spiritual awakening. And so I said, okay, I'm in the right profession. So I did not leave my training and go run off to do some activist thing. Although as soon as I left Sanshinji, I did go off and do an activist thing. And anyway, wait, no, it's not there. All right, I was looking for a line that I wrote, but it's one of those remarks about modern culture, so I'm probably better off not to mention it. But the whole writing the book was an effort to reach beyond the official Zen Sangha, reach out and offer encouragement to the people who are environmentalists and who are going into despair, and encouragement to the people, or I don't know, some kind of push to the people who just don't think there's anything to do. And now I'm looking and going, okay, more retreat, more retreat, more retreat, more sitting. And I'll start by sitting 2 hours a day. And that's not everybody's thing. It's just, I need to do that. Okay. And now I'm really stopping, unless there's a question.
Shodo. So my question is, I think I heard you advocating taking leadership positions and I'm thinking about people who would like to be able to do that, but it might place them in danger, in terms of, so I'm wondering how you would reconcile that or how you might work around that or work with that.
Oh, that's a great question. I didn't think I advocated leadership. I just was like, well, I have to do that. But maybe I advocated it because I'm not in favor of staying home and waiting for other people to fix it. People do what they're able to do. I have never chosen to lock myself down on construction or pipeline stuff, and I'm a little embarrassed about that. And there's always been an excuse of some kind or other, but I'm a little embarrassed because I didn't do that. I don't want to get hurt. But it was like I had a job. I have to, And when you do that, it wrecks your life for the next year or so. Even if you don't go to prison, you're constantly running across 2 states who go to court and then they cancel court and you have to do it again. Obviously, I've watched this. And I said, okay, when it comes to Minnesota, now it has come to Minnesota, data mining centers. There's one planned for 4 miles from my house. So if I get arrested about that, and I don't think I'm going to have to. Anyway, so yeah, David Hartzog just died. He was a Quaker activist. And it was funny because he went on civil rights protests a long time ago. And they beat him, and he had a bad back for the rest of his life. And I asked him once, did you ever think this would happen? He said, no, I thought I might die. I didn't know I would have a bad back for the rest of my life. I know that at Standing Rock, there are 2 people that I'm aware of, and one of them, I forget her name, but she became very famous, Sophie something, because they shot with a rubber bullet and they wrecked her arm. And what she was doing was carrying water to people who were on the front lines protesting. And they wrecked her arm. And it was a very big deal. The other woman, I forget her name also, but they shot her eye out with a rubber bullet. She was Native. And Native people know her, but it wasn't a big story like this. When Native people get locked up, or the conditions in which they're locked up, the response is not as good as, or as useful as when white people get locked up. And so there's a lot of work been done using this. White Clay, they were protesting against the liquor stores, which were supplying the reservation. And they would go and they would do this and that, but they did these peaceful marches. And then 5 or 6 white people locked down on the street. And the reason it was white people was because their punishment would be less harsh. I met somebody, can't say I knew her, who did accompaniment somewhere in South or Central America. And just by having one witness in a village, it prevented the raids on the villages. I forget who it was, but it's a well-known thing, an American shows up and risks their life. Now, of course, the people who are at the most jeopardy are people with brown and black skins. Transgender people are getting up there, and I've met a lot of transgender people risking their lives to protect the planet. Okay. And so there was this group decision somehow at Rosebud. Who was it? So the pipeline company, which changed their name, was it Enron or the other one? Anyway, they were going around bribing towns to like them. We stopped in a town where they had donated a community center. Nice building, great place. Okay, so on Rosebud Reservation, they were building solar panels, and this power company offered to buy their power. And, you build a big power plant, which is a good thing for the earth, and you have to sell it to somebody. Rosebud turned them down. Rosebud is the poorest place on this continent, maybe in this country. I don't say, but very, very poor. Their children are hungry, and they turn down money. And I can't say that anybody should do that. I haven't done it. But when I look at what people will do who are really connected, of course, along with the trauma and alcohol and poverty and all that stuff, they have something of tradition. And they chose leaders, at least at that time, who stood up for that tradition and took care of the earth. So I can't not advocate leadership either. I was out there for a training event, and they had 10-year-olds learning how to do video. And they had teenagers doing all the work. And I think they were associated with AIM. And those teenagers then, they had their own sweat lodge, they did ceremonies with them. It's like they were training leaders. I was like, I never got that kind of training. If anybody was, and somebody probably was, but I was a girl, so I wouldn't have. And now you see people training people, but I want to be. It's like my thing when I look at this is like that spiritual connection with the earth is what makes everything possible. Anger alone won't do it. I don't know if I answered your question. I think I was on topic anyway.
Laura.
Well, Laura.
Laura's got her hand up.
Yeah.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you because it just really related to a lot of the things in the talk and about knowing what to do or sitting. I had a very regular sitting practice of at least an hour and a half a day to a couple of hours a day, and I've fallen away from that for over a year now, and it's been very intermittent here and there. And I gave myself reasons for it and why it was okay. And I also knew that it was baloney. Um, so your talk has inspired me to, it's just inspired me. Thank you.
Okay, great. And thank you. And that's that's basically what happened to me too. So I'm with you.
All right. Any last comments or anything for Shodo? Questions? All right. Well, thank you, Shodo.
Thank you for inviting me and for great questions and all that.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So next Sunday will be Myoshin Diane Benjamin will be our speaker. And we have a lot going on. We're coming out of our sort of, well, they call it mud season at Hokyoji. I don't know if we're actually going to be done with the mud, but we have retreats starting and lots of different events. The main next Hokyoji event is, appropriately enough, Caring for the Land weekend. Is Thursday the 10th through Sunday. You can come on Friday as well. You don't have to come for the whole time. May 1st through the 4th is the True Heart Women's Retreat at Hokyoji. May 25th is Just Sitting Retreat starts. I did skip. April 26th will be the annual Hokyoji membership meeting in the Twin Cities. So there's that, and I think that's everything. I think that's the big. Just Sitting's May 25th. I got confused when I read the 25th. I go, aren't we already doing something on the 25th? It's like, that's April. April 26th is the annual meeting. So it's good to see everyone this morning. Let's close with the 4 vows. So we'll go ahead. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. All right. Thank you, everyone. Go on. Hope you have a great day and sit some more zazen.